Hey guys, back again. Zahir here. So I'm here to make my new video. Of course, this is a little bit different to what I'm usually making. Everything I've made up to this point has been things like movies and TV shows, maybe a little bit of history and just a little bit of science. But today I want to talk about the fight last night. So Queen's Room and Matchroom had their grudge match, if you like, between the two promoters, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And the big fight of the night, last one, was Big Bang Zhang versus Deontay Wilder. Now, there were actually quite a few good fights that night. I think I watched 4 out of 5 of them, and maybe I'll make another video on the fights that came before, but I think really I'd like to talk about the big one, the main title card. So, of course, very big spoilers for the fight. If you haven't seen it already, go and watch it. It was a good night of boxing. It was really good to see. I went over to some friends and logged in with my DAZN on her TV and watched the fight. But I was a little bit miffed at first because I thought that this would be included in my DAZN subscription, but I actually had to pay an additional £22 for the fights. But having said that, I think it was absolutely worth it. So, you've got a big Chinese guy in Big Bang Zhang. He's had some big fights. I saw him make pretty swift work of Joe Joyce, and Joe Joyce can take some punishment, but he couldn't take enough of the punishment from Zhang. And Deontay Wilder, of course, fought Fury 3 times and has managed to get some big knockouts. Though, truth be told, I think once he got to that sort of tippy top elite level of heavyweight boxing, he couldn't really handle it, or his lack of amateur experience, despite being a bronze at the Olympics, unbelievable. That lack of experience that you see with some fighters, like say Usyk, where they've had hundreds of amateur bouts before they even get to professional. So for those of you who have already seen the fight, you know what happened. But the fight started, and the immediate thing I noticed in the first round of this fight with Zhang, I'm pointing and yelling at the screen saying, what is Wilder doing milling around in the corner in the first round of this fight? Like, he's getting caught in the corner by Zhang. Zhang is walking him down, and Wilder is letting him do this in the first round of the fight. Like, that is not a good portent. That does not bode well going forward. And of course, we saw what ended up happening. And then same thing in the second round, and in multiple rounds going forward, I'm watching Wilder, and he keeps ending up in the corner, and he just seems to have no means by which to get out of that corner. There was a moment where I thought, maybe Wilder kind of doesn't really know how to fight on the inside, because Zhang was walking him down, getting him into the corner, and then roughing him up a bit. And Wilder got a few decent shots in. I think there were a couple of sort of right uppercuts and even a few right crosses. But the issue with Wilder was I was watching him throw these crosses, and he landed a few of these on Zhang, actually. And Zhang ate absolutely every one of them. Wilder would throw the right, and he'd kind of like pop it out and pop it back. And I'm thinking, if you're going to throw that shot and you're landing it on this guy, you need to throw the right all the way out and use all of your range. Like, extend out. Don't let it end there with a kink in your arm. Extend it out. Make your fist go through the guy's face. And he wasn't doing that. And, I was sitting there with a mate, and I was saying, is Wilder a little bit gun shy? Like, he's not... Like, even in the shots where he is landing, it doesn't look like he's fully committing to them, like those right crosses that I just mentioned. And, just watching the fight, I'll be honest, was a little bit embarrassing. I can't... It's incredible to me And, there's no way of saying this without sounding really disrespectful. It's embarrassing to watch Wilder fight. Here's a guy who walked into a boxing gym, I think at 20. Incredible achievement, by the way. And then ended up at the Olympics 2 years later and won bronze. Amazing. But his lack of boxing skill is in your face. You just can't ignore it. I'm watching this guy, and it looks like, I don't know what the stats are. He looks like he's got a longer range than Zhang. I think he has like a slight height, advantage, an inch, which is not going to make too much of a difference. But I'm watching him doing this. He's like pawing at Zhang's face like he's a teddy bear. And I'm like, throw your jab. Throw your jab. Like, throw your jab out and then use your jab to set up your right, And this is going to sound mean, but, Wilder can't box to save his life. He cannot box to save his life. What are you doing milling around in the corner in the first round of the fight? What is this? Where is your jab? Use your jab to set up your shots. Go upstairs, downstairs, box long, use your range, use your reach. And I mean, Zhang is quite a lot bigger than Wilder. Like, essentially it was like Fury and Wilder all over again. Was it 68 pounds? How many kilos is that? Isn't that like 5 or 6 stones? That's like an entire additional tiny person in Zhang over Wilder. But Wilder he had no jab. Even when he's landing his shots, he doesn't seem to be able to commit fully, And I think it got to the third rounds and they showed the punch stats. And Wilder had thrown more punches than Zhang and landed less. He had a hit rate of like 14% landed. And the commentator said, I don't know who it was, said, that's 3 punches a round. Wilder was landing 3 punches a round. Like, that does not bode well. I think Zhang's landed rate at that point was something like 48%. And he was throwing less punches as well. Usually, quite often, the guy who throws more punches, is the one who's doing better in the fight. He's more active. He's controlling the pace of the fight. That's not what was happening here. Wilder, and especially the way the fight ended, like, Wilder makes mistakes that a 15-year-old amateur would not make. And I'll get to the knockout at the end, but I'll say this. That lead right that rocked Wilder in the third round, you saw it rock him, bang, that's exactly the shot that rocked him in round 5 and then led to him being knocked out again with another lead right. I think the fact that Zhang was a southpaw, I think probably gave Wilder a lot of trouble. But, Zhang actually looks like he can box. He's going upside downstairs. He's walking Wilder down. He's got good ring generalships. He's putting Wilder in the corner and he's throwing different combinations. I don't think I saw any combinations from Wilder whatsoever. I didn't even see a goddamn jab from Wilder. It was really embarrassing watching this fight. And, I just wonder, it looks like Wilder also doesn't have too much of a chin, because that right that rocked Wilder in the 5th, it clipped him. It didn't even look like it hit him. I remember watching the fight and be like, but that didn't even look like it necessarily hit. It looked like it clipped him. And if you watch the replay, of course, he clipped him. Zhang clipped Wilder. It didn't even look like a clean, strike. And Wilder's dazed. And then this is his mistake. This was Wilder's mistake. This is what led to him getting knocked the hell out. When I had my first proper sparring match at a boxing gym, I got hit hard, and then I turned around and I, putting my back to my opponent. And the coach puts his finger in my face and says, don't turn your back Don't turn your back to your opponent. I got told off for that. In my first proper sparring match, I got told, don't turn your back to your opponent. And that's exactly what Wilder did. This is the thing. I'm like, how can this guy have gotten this far in boxing and he's making mistakes that a 15-year-old amateur would not make? He gets clipped with that right, turns his back on Zhang, and you can see in the replay, by the way, you can see Zhang, when it's slowed down, running behind Wilder and then throwing that right hook, and then bang, it's over. I mean, you know, when he first got clipped with that first right that dazed him a bit before he's turned around, I think my mate said, this might be it. And the commentators on the fight on the DAZN stream one of them was saying, oh, is this it? Is this it? And then, of course, Zhang runs up behind Wilder and then hits him with that right hook from behind. Wilder has his back turned to Zhang, who's trying to knock him out, and then proceeds to do just that. You know, I think what Wilder has managed to achieve in his life is incredible. As I said, 20 years old, 2 years later at the Olympics, bronze at the Olympics. But, I'll say this, Wilder can't box to save his life. No jab, no combinations, got no footwork, can't stay out of the corner, was gun shy, doesn't have a chin. It's embarrassing that this guy was at the top of boxing for as long as he was. And I guess you got to give it to Zhang as well. At 41 years old, this guy he's just knocked out Deontay Wilder, and good on him. He did a fantastic job in the fight. I'll put it much more kindly. Well, I should say that Teddy Atlas put it much more kindly than I did. I think Wilder can't box to save his life. Teddy Atlas says, and I do believe this is true, that Wilder has this, and he said this a couple of years ago, I think, and this was for the second Fury fight. And by the way, like, Teddy Atlas gets a fair amount wrong, but he knows his boxing. And he said that, because I think he bet on Wilder over Fury, I can't remember, and I thought Wilder was going to beat Fury in the second fight between them, and that's not the way that went. But Teddy Atlas says that Wilder has an eraser in his right hand. His right hand erases all of his mistakes. Everything that I just said, his jabs, like combinations, getting stuck in the corner and gun shy and all of that. All of the stuff that, like as an amateur, you're meant to learn, or that he should have picked up over the decades as a fighter. All of that stuff that quite often you can forget in the heat of the moment in a fight when somebody's trying to take your head off. You're not going to remember everything. All of your combinations are not going to be perfect. Your footwork's not going to be perfect. But I guess, hey, this is boxing. You're meant to be to do this stuff in the ring while somebody's trying to hit you in the liver or knock your face off. But Wilder's right hand, that eraser, erases all of his mistakes because he scores the knockout. Now, of course, Fury showed that, well, that's not going to do you any good with somebody like Fury. In the case of Parker, and I didn't see the Parker Wilder fight, maybe I will. If there's a demand for any more boxing, by the way, I'm happy to go over some boxing matches. I did watch Inoue v Neri recently, and as I said, the other fights on this last night were pretty good as well. Hamza and Williams, I think there's Hrgovic and Debar was pretty good. Debar's just had the biggest fight of his career. I think he's just got a title. And of course, we've got Big Bang Zhang versus Deontay Wilder. Just an extra couple of things about this fight. It was interesting that the commentators were saying China power versus Alabama power, as opposed to China power versus American power, US power. You know, we'll pretend that China and the US are not locked in a Cold War, and have been locked in a Cold War for the past 10 years. They didn't make it into sort of a national thing like it was Rocky IV, but with China and the US. But altogether, you know, I was happy with the £22 that I'd spent on this set of fights. I think it was pretty good. It was a good night of boxing. And Wilder, I mean, hey, you know, best of luck to him, and you know, to him and his family, and whatever he decides to do next. I don't think anybody would blame him if he decided to retire at this point. Zhang, hey, you know, the guy's in the twilight years of his career now. You know, most people are not fighting at 41, but it would be interesting to see what he's capable of doing. Would I want to see sort of like an Usyk or a Zhang? Yeah, it could be interesting. I think a Zhang and an AJ could be interesting. You know, there's I think the heavyweight division is very much alive. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's a joke that Fury and AJ never got the fight together. I don't know whose fault that was, but the heavyweight division is looking very interesting. It's really nice to see, actually, and I'm definitely going to be making more of an effort to keep up to boxing, because I tend to sort of dip in and out of it depending on what kind of fights are out there. Anyway, I hope you guys liked my video. Of course, this is very different to the kind of stuff that I usually make, you know, movies and TV shows and history and that. But you may very well see more boxing from me if that's something that you're looking for. So you should be able to see videos on the screen that I've made before that you can click on, and you know, you can like, subscribe, leave a comment. Am I too harsh on Wilder? Do you think I'm being a little bit mean? You know, do you think this is maybe not the end of the road? Do you think there's something else for him? What kind of fights would you like to see next? Who do you want to see Zhang fight next? I think that's a great question. Who do you want to see Zhang fight next? But yeah, fantastic night of boxing. Really enjoyed it. And beyond that, guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and I will bid you a good day and a good weekend. Goodbye.